Super cool Doomsday story. Floods, extreme cold, high temperatures, earthquakes, tsunamis, insect disasters, acid rain. The female protagonist, who is an orphan, experienced all of the above natural disasters in just 3 years. If you want to survive in the apocalypse, you must not have any kindness. Jessica, relying on her memories from her past life, leads the neighbors on the 16th floor to become the most evil people in the apocalypse. Because as long as you are bad enough, the people downstairs won't dare to steal your things. At this moment, someone knocks on the door of the stairwell. Jessica opens the door and it's Eric's classmate. The man sees Jessica and says, "Eric was stabbed by you yesterday and bitten by your dog. Now he has a fever. You must take responsibility for this." Jessica ignores him, closes the door, and returns to her own room. After breakfast, Barry comes knocking on the door with $1 million in cash. Today, they are going to exchange this $1 million in cash for useful items. Ida is still at home taking care of the children. Today, they have added another dog. When they arrive at the department store, there are already many people there. It's only 9 o'clock, but the officials announce today's food has already been distributed. Please come back tomorrow if you need it. At this point, someone says, "I arrived here at midnight last night. Who did you give the food to?" People start to complain. If it weren't for the armed soldiers around, there would have been a riot long ago. After the crowd disperses, Jessica and the others enter the department store's sales area to buy all the money they have for cold-resistant supplies. Although Jessica doesn't lack these things, Ida and the others don't have them. Fortunately, no one knows that it will be an extremely cold era after the flood, so the prices of clothes and blankets haven't increased much. Jessica buys 7 mink coats and spends $350,000. Ida is very concerned about money. Jessica asked the 3 of them to quickly go and buy cotton clothes. They should buy down jackets and socks as long as they are warm. While Jessica was selecting supplies, a middle-aged man quietly approached. He asked, "Do you need grain?" Jessica turned her head and saw a man. Jessica asked, "What kind of grain do you have?" The man said, "Soaked grain is $2,500 per kilogram, and unsoaked grain is $5,000 per kilogram." Jessica said, "How do I know if the soaked grain will kill people?" $2,000 per kilogram. If possible, I want 250 kilograms. The man hesitated. Jessica turned and walked towards Astor. After a while, the man came back again, indicating that the price could be negotiated. After Jessica and Astor explained everything to Jim, he said he could accept it, but in order to prevent them from cheating, he requested to divide the transaction into 5 times, with 50 kilograms per transaction. And the transaction address should be chosen at the entrance of the department store because there are military forces here. If they cheat, they will report them. After listening to Jim's opinion, the man said he couldn't make the decision and asked them to wait here for a while. He went to ask the boss. He left $500,000 in cash. Jessica used the remaining money to buy fur coats and compression bags. The cashier was very surprised. Everyone was buying food, but these 4 people spent $500,000 on fur coats. Just as the 4 of them walked out of the department store, the man came over. "Our boss agreed to the transaction. Your transaction method and address." Jessica looked in the direction pointed by the man's finger and saw another man not far away, holding a bag of rice. Astor walked towards the man and after confirming that there was no problem, Jessica handed the man a paper bag containing $100,000 in cash. After confirming the trading time for tomorrow, Jessica and the other 3 drove away from the department store in a speedboat. On their way back, Astor chose an open area to avoid being noticed. After driving for about 10 minutes, Barry spotted a floating black shadow on the water's surface through his binoculars. As they approached, they were surprised to find that it was actually a live pig swimming in the water. The sight of the pig in the water brought great joy to the group, as they finally had some pork to eat. When the speedboat got closer, the pig didn't try to escape. The group grabbed its front legs and pulled it up with all their strength. The pig weighed around 200 pounds. After successfully pulling it up, Jessica took out an electric prod from her backpack and stunned the pig. Barry and Jim were still processing what had just happened when Astor suggested that if they brought the live pig back, it would surely be stolen. So they quickly found a place a few kilometers away to slaughter it. There were several buildings under construction submerged in water. Astor immediately started the speedboat and headed towards the construction site. Upon arrival, Jessica didn't participate in the pig slaughter. She handed the butcher knife to Astor and went upstairs. The higher she went, the more cement and steel reinforcement she saw. Thinking about the garden in her space, she realized there was plenty of vacant space, approximately 2,000 cubic feet. Jessica collected all the materials and stored them in her space, knowing that they would be valuable for reconstruction in the event of an earthquake or natural disaster. After completing all of this, she came back downstairs. The three of them had already divided the pig into 4 portions. When they returned to the luxurious neighborhood, they put the pork in their backpacks to avoid being discovered, only revealing the cotton jackets they bought at the department store in a bag of food. Even so, the entire building was still staring at them. They all wanted to know why Jessica and her group could bring back so many supplies every time. But they couldn't defeat Jessica and her group. A middle-aged man in the crowd said, "Don't underestimate that girl. She used to live on the 8th and 12th floors. But her ex-boyfriend and classmates either got injured or had broken ribs when they tried to ask her for food." Just as the 4 of them were carrying the supplies to the 16th floor, a dog rushed to Jessica's side, whimpering. The next second, Amy also jumped into Astor's arms. When they found out that they had brought back pork, Ida was so excited that she almost cried. She hadn't eaten meat for almost a month since the typhoon hit. But then she realized that storing so much pork would be the biggest problem. If they couldn't finish it, it would spoil. At this moment, Astor said, "I have a car refrigerator at home that can fit my portion of meat. But the solar panels can barely sustain it due to insufficient sunlight." Hearing Astor's words, Jessica also remembered that she had a car refrigerator in her space. She quickly explained that the landlord's house seemed to have one too. Seeing that their problem was solved, Jim suggested that they should eat their portion first. Jessica then proposed frying the fatty meat into lard and salting the leftover lean meat. With the current temperature, it should be fine for a few days. Jessica told everyone that there were a few packets of hot pot base at home, so they could have hot pot for dinner. Everyone was extremely happy. It was only morning, and there were still a few hours until evening. Jessica said she needed to go out and find dog food. Jim wanted to go with her, but was rejected by Jessica because her real purpose was to find the direction where the pigs were floating. She remembered that there was a large pig farm upstream and several mountains connected to it. If those pigs hadn't drowned, there was a high probability that they would swim there. Although Jessica already had a lot of pork in her space, now that they had a dog, they needed more food. In order to increase the chances of finding the pigs, Jessica brought the dog with her this time. 1 person and 1 dog drove. After half an hour of driving, Jessica landed on a relatively flat land, the former Imperial City. After stowing the inflatable boat away, Jessica hiked up the mountain. Half an hour later, she looked at the pig manure washed away by the rain with delight. Just then, the dog suddenly started barking. Through her binoculars, Jessica saw a group of pigs seeking shelter. Pigs are omnivorous animals, and although they can survive in the grass, it was clear that they had lost them. Since living creatures cannot be stored in space, Jessica took out a high-powered electric baton and electrocuted the 2 pigs closest to her. The other pigs were frightened and wanted to run, but the dog stopped. 20 minutes later, a total of 15 pigs were electrocuted by Jessica and stored in space. Immediately after, Jessica and the dog searched for other pigs in the mountains. By evening, Jessica had caught over 70 pigs and electrocuted them all, storing them in the space. Once she was sure that none were missed, Jessica and the dog headed downhill. Just as they took a few steps, the dog suddenly rushed into the nearby forest. Jessica quickly followed. After chasing for a few hundred meters, Jessica saw the dog digging a hole with its paws. Before long, a gray rabbit emerged from the hole. The dog swiftly attacked, biting the rabbit's neck. In this way, the dog caught a total of 3 wild rabbits. When Jessica returned to the beautiful community, it was already complete. To avoid trouble, she deliberately gathered a pile of firewood and held it in her arms. When the people in the building saw Jessica carrying the firewood, their mood instantly improved. After returning home, Jessica picked some vegetables and mushrooms from the balcony. Astor also brought out his cherished beef and lamb. Jim brought out some alcohol he found in the office building. In the evening, the group of them happily enjoyed a hot pot meal. If it weren't for the flood outside that reached the 5th floor, they seemed to have forgotten that they were currently in the apocalypse. After finishing the meal, Ida left the hot pot broth for later use. This broth could be used to cook noodles when they were hungry. Everyone was very relaxed after that. The next day, they all slept until they naturally woke up. Barry and Jim went to the department store to trade. After waking up at noon, Jessica took the dog and Amy to Ida's room to cook the pig offal. In the afternoon, when Barry and Jim returned, they all ate together. Jim told Jessica that the prices of goods in the department store had increased again, but the men hadn't increased their prices. They were not only trading in food, but also acquiring resources such as tea, tobacco, alcohol, and medicine. Ida happily said that they had all of those resources. How about we exchange for more non-perishable food? Jessica directly rejected Ida's idea, saying that buying food with $500,000 was already high-profile enough. If they were to bring out these scarce resources, it would bring trouble. Those people were not easy to deal with. After finishing the meal, Jessica sent the dog to Astor's place. The dog looked at Astor, and Astor started chatting with the dog. Jessica became a teacher for Amy. In the following days, everyone on the 16th floor was improving themselves. The rabbits on the balcony gave birth to 10 baby rabbits, and all kinds of vegetables grew well. Even the space garden was planted with fruit trees by Jessica. In the morning of this day, as soon as Jessica walked out of the space, she heard a knocking sound at the stairwell. Opening the door, she saw a boy supporting an old lady. Seeing the old lady's painful expression, Jessica already guessed their purpose for coming. The boy politely said, "Hello, my name is David. I heard that you have studied medicine. My grandmother is suffering from severe back pain, and we can't buy medicine at the hospital. Can you help treat my grandmother?" Jessica said, "I can help, but I will charge a fee, and I can't guarantee a cure." After more than 10 minutes passed, David brought in a bicycle. Jessica expressed her satisfaction, saying that this bicycle could replace 10 treatments. She then told him that he couldn't come in. An hour and a half later, he would come to pick up her grandmother and help her downstairs. After assisting her grandmother into the corridor, Jessica did not let her enter the room. Instead, she went back to the room and took out medicinal wine and silver needles to treat her grandmother. In fact, Jessica had medicine in her space that could quickly heal her grandmother. However, if she took it out and let the people downstairs know that she had medicine, it would be troublesome. An hour and a half later, after David took her grandmother away, Jessica returned to her room and started practicing boxing to train her body. Just then, Astor brought Amy for a class. The two of them started sparring. Astor used to be a police officer and was very skilled in boxing. No matter how Jessica attacked, Astor could easily dodge and even sneak attack her while dodging. Jessica continued to attack, and the dog that was awakened by the commotion saw the two of them fighting and pounced on Astor.